the reason we always think that the grass is greener is because we are living in a capitalistic society that commodifies everything.
Yes.
Makes us feel like what we have now is not pretty or beautiful or peaceful, and that in order to have peace and joy and beauty in our lives, we have to buy it. We have to pay the man. We have to participate, which is so counterintuitive to our true essence and why I get so tripped up, because I'm like, but it's not the point. But it is. But it's not. If our only purpose on this earth with this soul, this body, this mind is to find peace and joy and happiness within ourselves, what's the fucking point of wanting more?
For those who are deep enough to get it,
But profound enough to not care.
you're listening to Consciously Unconscious.
Good morning, guys
And girls.
and gays.
And everyone in between. Good morning, all.
Good morning. We have a pod dog today.
Yeah, I brought a little doggy. I'm renting a dog for the week.
Yeah.
I'm not actually renting it. Someone's letting me borrow it.
How's it going?
Great. I just picked him up this morning. He's the best dog in the world. His name is Mac. Shout out Sydney. You have the best dog in the world. He's a Korean Jindo. So he's like perfect size, perfect temperament, perfect.
Yeah, he is really cute, actually. And I'm not the biggest dog person, just in general. Like, I'm not a big like pet person.
Okay, so you're admitting publicly that you're a sociopath.
I've admitted this many times publicly. But yeah, I'm not like a big pet person. I think it's because I have 2 children. Like, I can't even think about a pet.
Were you a pet person before children?
See, no. And I think it's because growing up, my dogs were outside dogs. Like, we lived on like a good amount of
I've heard
property.
of outside cats, not quite heard of
No,
outside
we
dogs.
had like an actual house outside for them. Like, we built like a little doggy house, and then they had their little doggy beds in there. They were labs. They stayed outside, and then they stayed in the garage. Like, yeah.
Do you want to know a thought that often crosses my mind?
What?
The evolution of a wolf to a pug.
I'm sorry. Is that the evolution? That's where pugs originate?
I'm not sure, but if we're thinking about the species of a canine,
True.
dog, we can only assume that they come from wolves.
Right.
And what we've just inbred them enough, and there's been enough genetic mutations that it turns into a wiener dog,
It's
a
incest.
pug,
It's a result of incest.
a bulldog. Like, we're getting pugs out of wolves.
Yeah, it's a wild thought, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But Mac is super cute. And again, I like dogs. I like them, but I just can't even think about having a pet. And so anytime I'm around a dog, it's almost like I don't know what to do. Like, it's like
Act
a
natural.
person.
Act chill. Act chill.
It's like a person who doesn't know how to be around children, you know? Whereas I feel like I know how to be around children, but dogs is just like
exposure therapy.
Yeah.
That was me. I didn't know how to be around kids, and now I'm super good with your kids.
Yeah, you love my children love you.
I'm so good with your kids.
Yeah, you are.
They do love me.
They do. Auntie Jess.
I know, they wouldn't let me leave the other night. It was actually making me emotion. They were attached to my leg.
Yeah, Ellis is really vibing with you too. Lennox loves you, but he's also distracted. He like wants to do his own thing. He's like on his own mission. Ellis is very like loves when people are around.
Yeah, Alyssa and I have stared into each other's souls.
Yeah,
We've become pure loving awareness together.
Yeah.
We've dissolved the ego together.
Let's get into the ego. But before we do that, actually, let's jump into our beverage of the week. This topic that we're exploring today, kind of in conjunction with the live from our Saturn return episode that we did previously, is just exploring topics that I feel like come up during this time of like your late 20s, early 30s, and really a topic for anyone to discuss. But it's a topic of, is the grass always greener? And I think it's something that we all hear time and time again, and we all think about whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And so with that, I have a little beverage that goes with that, but I need you to sing because I can't today.
I can attempt.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Well, I haven't sang in a while. I feel like I need to warm my vocal
Warm
cords.
up those pipes, girl.
No, 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 no. Is the grass always greener? It's the beverage of the week that also looks green.
Okay, Christina Aguilera.
Green machine. Green. Evergreen machine.
Beveragine evergreen. That's good. I like that. Thank you.
I kind of got a little stage fright there. That made me feel a little uncomfortable, actually.
I think you killed it.
Thank you. I wasn't ready for a solo.
So we have our beautiful beveragine, and it is green to be on brand for today's topic.
Ooh, what's in
it? Is the evergreen smoothie, and it's like kale, it's spinach, it's got some almond butter in it. I think it has bananas. I haven't tasted it yet. A little cinnamon dusting.
Say, health is wealth.
Health is wealth. But the reason I picked it was, one, because it was green, but also two, because it reminds me of a time in my life where I thought that the grass would be greener if I ate healthy, if I got skinny, if I got super holistically well, mind, body, soul. And like, there is truth to that. But I feel like when I was in the extreme, the thick of like, what's that? Orthorexia, like obsession over health and wellness. I would only want to eat clean. So this is kind of a nod to that, is like,
yeah,
I thought the grass would be greener if I just drank this all the time.
Good choice. It also probably tastes like grass. It's good.
Ooh.
Don't be doing it on the microphone.
Do you have the cinnamon?
Yeah. Wow, it's really good. Wow, I like it.
It's good. I've never had this one before.
Mommy like it. The grass is green where you water it, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Good choice.
Before we dive in, though, to the topic, I do want to say Merry Christmas.
Merry Crumbus.
Merry Chrysler.
Merry holidays, whatever you celebrate. Today is the eve of Santa's return.
It's very, very sensitive subject for Jessa.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him this year because we're not really on talking terms. But I hope that you are in a special place celebrating with special people. It doesn't necessarily matter what you celebrate, but I hope you're safe and happy and healthy and feeling loved and present, and knowing that moving into this year, this 2025 calendar year, you have autonomy, you have choice, you have the ability to step into a version of yourself that is the most potent, the most profound, the most awake, aware, and alive you've ever been. And you can do that right now. Right now.
And if you're feeling like you aren't aligning with the words that Jessa just said, potent, being able to cultivate the life that you want right here, right now, this is a perfect episode for you. And I feel like it's really timely that we're talking about this right now, because I think with Christmas, and I know we did an episode surrounding gift giving and really touching on that topic, but I feel like this is a time where you're either on your social media apps seeing what everybody else is doing for Christmas, the friends that they're around, the dinners that they're having, the gifts that they're getting. And it's this time where, if you're not careful, I think it's really easy to think that the grass is greener on the other side. And so I feel like it's a perfect time for us to be talking about this, but let's just dive in.
Swan dive. I
think if we are going to explore this topic, we need to first define, like, what does that phrase even mean? What does the grass is always greener on the other side mean?
The grass is always greener. I think it comes from this idea of not being able to fully live in the present moment because you're expecting that elsewhere the weather is better, therefore your grass is greener because it's been watered better. The grass is greener implying things that you don't currently have, situations that you're not currently in, people that you're not currently around will make you feel better, will make you happier, will make you more fulfilled if you just get there. I will be happy if I just get the house, the job, the boyfriend, the purse, the whatever. So it's essentially implying that your happiness, your peace, your joy, your freedom lies in the future. It lies in something that you don't currently have in the now. The grass is always greener is rooted in something that doesn't exist yet.
I think it's a lack mindset. And I think when I was doing my research on like, where the fuck did this statement even come from? I came across something that I think is in a psychological term of like focus illusion, where it's exactly what you're saying. Instead of putting our focus on what we have now, we're putting on our focus on what we don't have.
It's very elusive.
It's very elusive, and it's super subconscious, and it's not something that we know we're actually doing all the time. And so I think that when we explore this conversation of the grass is always greener, it comes from this lack mindset. It comes from this place of, I do not have X, Y, and Z, and therefore I'm not going to be happy, like Jessa said, which also rides off the coattails of the belief that happiness is conditional. I think if we're going to really dissect that term, it's coming from a place of joy, love, happiness, contentedness, peace is conditional on, again, the job, the money, the success, the fame. And I think to build some context, it would be helpful for us to dive into some of our personal experiences with this. But I know that in order to really fully understand this concept, we do have to define the ego. So do you want to define ego?
Yeah. Well, you made an interesting point about happiness being conditional, and conditions are a perfect segue to the ego, because the ego is exactly that. The ego is creating conditions. So your ego is essentially this narrator, or it's the voice. In simple terms, it's the voice, it's the narration that you have in your head about who you are and how you fit into the world. It's what creates your identity based on labels, based on roles, based on preferences, based on likes and dislikes. And it's essentially how you talk about the you, the me. And that can be very limiting, as we know. It can also be very inclusive. We did an episode on, are labels limiting or not? That's highly involved and attached to the ego. The ego is not inherently bad. It's just that we have to see beyond the ego. So when people talk about dissolving the ego, or
the ego death,
it's not necessarily getting rid of it. It's being able to transcend it, to sit in this space of witness consciousness, to notice that you are not the thoughts. You are not the thinking mind. You are not just the roles that you play. You are not just the preferences that you have. You are not just your likes and dislikes. You are not just X, Y, and Z that your ego defines for you.
I think in order for people to really wrap their heads around the concept of ego, if they've never been introduced to it, I think, can you explain a little bit more the helpful side of the ego, why we can't just kill it, why we do need to have it? Like, what does the ego drive for us that actually is supportive for us?
Senses of belonging, I think. Allowing you to participate in the world, allowing you to have a sense of identity is really helpful in terms of participation in career and relationships and enjoyment of this reality that we play in, because that's the joy of being able to participate in and play and touch and feel and like have this tangible interaction with the world. That's your ego at work, at play. But it's the attachment to the outcomes. It's the cycle of dissatisfaction that you can get when you are so stuck in how you show up. Mm-hmm. And this is a very abstract concept. So take it as you do as we move through this. And hopefully we can give you some more concrete examples of what this looks like and how it plays out. But the ego is the thing that says to you in your mind, I will not be satisfied until I get the job. I will not be satisfied until I get the partner.
And I think the tricky thing about not dissolving the ego, but quieting it, breaking through it, separating from it, is that there are a lot of different things that are fueling the ego. There can be so many different avenues of that belief of I will not be happy until I get the job, the boyfriend, the house, the the success. There's a lot of different things there that could be fueling that belief. And so I think that's sometimes why it's intimidating for people to even begin to tackle or unravel or separate from, because it's overwhelming. There's a lot there.
Oh, yeah. And it's shoved down our throats, especially in the decade of your 20s to your 30s. Like, I'm reading this book called The Defining Decade.
It's one of my favorite books. I just picked it up again because Ethan brought it to me.
Yeah.
Jessa. Okay, finish.
It's fascinating. I'm not all the way through it, but it basically talks about how existential your 20s are. And this doesn't necessarily mean 20 through 30. It's basically just a decade that maybe ranges from 20 to 30, 25 to 35. It's like this period of time that is so exponential in terms of growth and in terms of life events that really set the foundation for who you are and how you're going to live your life, and what you want to do and how you want to interact with the world. And it's so fascinating.
It's fucking triggering. Dude, reading that book, I had moments of like, yeah, fucking love this. You're so right. This is so true. And then moments of like, oh, I'm like naked. Don't look at me.
Don't come at me like that.
Don't look at me like that. I'm vulnerable. Like, it is a book that really will get you. It's a perfect balance of baiting you and hooking you, because she gets you, the author, I forget her name.
Jay something.
Okay. And maybe it's a guy. I don't know.
It's a woman.
Okay. That's what I thought.
She's a really renowned psychiatrist.
And she's a therapist, and basically she's recounting a lot of her sessions with people in their 20s and the psyche of them and what's going on in their mind. And it's just so interesting because she does a really good job at relating to you, making things very tangible, making it feel like a safe space to be like, yeah, you're right, I felt that way. And then she just like hits you with a punch and you're like, I don't know if I was ready for that.
It's very call to action.
Yeah.
I mean, she really gets you to analyze exactly where you're at. And by giving you so many different examples of all of the clients that she's worked with and patients that she's worked with, there are so many different scenarios that allow you to have opportunities to relate to at least one of them, many of them in many ways. But it talks about your inner circle. It talks about relationships. It talks about career, which is a lot of what we're touching on here in this episode, about how there's pressures from every single angle that fuel your ego and fuel your internal and external like time and clock to be able to achieve.
Yeah.
And so these checklists of success are put in our faces from so many different angles to feel like we're not there yet. One more thing, and then I'll be there. One more thing, and then I'll be there. And then what are we doing our entire lives, especially in this like catalytic 20 to 30 range? Mac, no barking. Is we are living in the future that doesn't exist in an anxiety-driven bubble.
And it's such a catch-22 because we're living in the future and our present is actively creating our future. So it's like, what kind of future are we creating if we are only living in the future? Do you know what I mean?
One that's just filled with anxiety for more future and regret from the past.
Right. It's this constant, it's exactly why you achieve, and you say, well, when I get this career, I'm going to be happy. When you get 10,000 followers, I'm going to be happy.
Somehow the present is completely dissolved.
And then when you do get that thing, you're on to the next. You're not even happy with the success or the achievement that you made because you were so caught up and used to always thinking of the next thing in the future. So you can't even celebrate your wins.
Yeah.
I was going to share something that Lucas goes through, but this is not his story. This is not his platform, and I'm not going to share his story. But I want to go back to The Defining Decade really quick because it brought me back to when I first read that book. And I first read that book when I broke up with Lucas. I just turned 20. And no, I was 19 actually when I read this book for the first time. And then I picked it up again at 26, and it was really eye-opening. But the first time that I ever read that book was because I was in a long-term relationship for 3 years, and I was at a school that I wasn't happy with. I wasn't happy in my life. I felt so frustrated with my body, my health, my relationship, my family life, and my school. I didn't know where I was going to go. I was so lost, right? Like my lawn, my internal lawn, my grass was so wilted, so neglected. And I picked up this book, and it was kind of the catalyst for me breaking up with Lucas. This book, this exact book, which is why I was so like freaked out when you said it. It was the catalyst for me to be like, I need to see if the other side is greener. This is why I don't necessarily think that that phrase is a bad phrase all the time. Because for me, I needed to go and stare at somebody else's lawn and go to the other side to realize that that's actually not greener. I like myself. I needed to party and binge drink and try different personalities on that really didn't fit. I needed to do things on the other side to realize that wasn't me. I liked my grass better, my lawn better, only to realize that the only way that I'm going to be happy is if I water it. The only way. And so I think that that book was like a huge lesson for me to realize, like, sometimes you might have to go to the other side to realize that yours is better, and then you just water it.
I think many people experience that lesson in many different ways, whether it be a breakup, whether it be a loss of someone, whether it be psychedelics, whether it be, who knows how people get there. But I think that is the lesson, is that people must experience testing that theory. Is the grass greener? Going, exploring, trying it, realizing it's not, and then coming back and watering their own.
Yeah.
That was me with traveling, right?
Yeah.
The whole time you're here, you're stuck, you're like, I hate my job. Well, it wasn't even like I hate my job, I hate my life, I hate my friends. It was just like feeling this itch of there's something out there. There's something I got to go. There's something I got to do. There's this void. I must go fill it. The grass is greener. I must go. I must go. You go the whole time you're there. It's not that it wasn't completely blissful and euphoric and fulfilling in its own right, but there's also, I miss being home, and I miss my friends, and I miss this. And it's this mentality that you can't continue to chase and to chase and to chase to fill.
Can we break this down though? Because this is exactly where I struggle with this concept of the grass is greener, going and trying it, and then realizing it's not, coming back and watering your own. There's almost this cycle that happens, like we're explaining, of dissatisfaction. Mm-hmm. You go, you chase something, you realize it's not actually better or prettier or shinier or feels better. You go back to yourself, and then you like water yourself for a minute, and then you're like, I'm bored again.
Yeah. How do we make it sustainable?
How do we make it sustainable? And also, like, what is the line of, it's almost in my mind, I need to define, is it escaping something, or is that escape actually crucial for us to then be found? Do you know what I mean?
I don't necessarily know that it's an escape. I think that it's just an opportunity to try something on. I think it's an opportunity to explore. I think if it's just a reframe. It's not running away from something. It's running into opportunity. It's running through open doors instead of, I guess it's situational.
Do you get what I'm saying though? Like, what is the justification?
To go try something on outside of your own grass?
Yes, because if we are saying that every single opportunity, and this is also my question with goal setting. Let's talk both about it. If the idea, the concept, right, is that you will only find peace within yourself if you water your own grass, right? Mm-hmm. Why then essentially would we need to go,
For the experience of it.
Right.
Not for the attachment to the outcome of what it's going to bring you. For the pure joy of the experience.
That's it then. That I think if we go into these experiences of, I'm going to put my feet on someone else's grass, it's only because I want the experience and I'm not attached to any sort of outcome. I think that every time that I've ever gone on the other side to feel it out, to see how it felt beneath my feet, it's always with the expectation of an outcome.
You go on someone else's grass, you go to explore, you go to travel the world, you have the breakup, you go to do whatever you need to do outside of yourself simply because the experience will make you richer.
Yeah.
Simply because it is enhancing the uniqueness, the complexity, the richness of your life. Not because you're wanting to get something out of it.
But I think that's only an experience that you can have in hindsight. A perspective, I mean. It's only a perspective that you can have in hindsight. I think everything that I have done in the past, if I think about it, I've gone into it with an expectation of an outcome. Yeah. And I think that the more that you experience things that have risk, that are explorations, that are adventures, you realize that exactly what you said. It's only for the rich experience that you receive.
Well, that's kind of the idea of like karma yoga or sattva yoga, is like doing good because you're supposed to be doing good isn't doing good.
Right.
It's like you shouldn't do things because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
That's ironically the opposite. So doing things for a specific outcome is not why you should be doing them. You should be doing them just because of the experience of experiencing them.
So how do we take the ego out of those decisions then? Because that's what it is.
You do psychedelics.
You take mushrooms. Well, I think that I also feel this way sometimes about goals, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, there's a fine line between just allowance in life and being in flow, being in pure awareness, palms open, letting things come to you, being in this state of just like, I'm totally just in receiving mode. And then also feeling like, okay, I want to be in participation mode. I want to reach for goals. I want to manifest. I want to set things. I want to attract things to me through aligned action. And I struggle with that balance too, because I'm just like, the participation in life is the fun of it. And the active action is the fun of it. And the doing can be fun. But yeah, where's the line of that becoming?
Well, and not to be like nihilistic, but a part of me feels like, what's
nihilism for people?
Nihilism is like meaningless. Like things are meaningless. And so like I don't mean to be like, what's the fucking point? But like, what's the fucking point? If our only purpose on life, on this earth, with this soul, this body, this mind, is to find peace and joy and happiness within ourselves, what's the fucking point of wanting more? Why do we want more? I struggle with this internally on a soul level because I do want more, but I also want peace, and I also want contentedness, and I also want to be satisfied. And the more that I strive for more, the more I realize I'm more dissatisfied.
But what does more look like for you?
Well, and we've talked about this before. Yeah. And I think that it's not even the visual of what more looks like that I get tripped up in. It's almost the addiction of the striving, the chase, the doing. I struggle with, because what I have now is exactly what I want in the future. Just more freedom, more access, more stability.
But do you think that's the point of why we are supposed to be here, is to participate in?
I don't think it was our true nature.
I don't either.
I don't think it was our true nature. I think it's the cog in the machine. I think it's literally, and this is even a whole other topic to point out, but I think that the reason we always think that the grass is greener is because we are living in a capitalistic society that commodifies everything. Yes. Makes us feel like what we have now is not pretty or beautiful or peaceful, and that in order to have peace and joy and beauty in our lives, we have to buy it. We have to pay the man. We have to participate, which is so counterintuitive to our true essence, and why I get so fucking tripped up, because I'm like, but it's not the point. But it is. But it's not. Welcome to our Saturn return episode.
Dude, Amanda's on fire today. I'm just going to let her rock. Sometimes this stuff is so heavy that it's very hard for me to articulate. And I live in this conscious questioning mindset a lot, like this existence questioning mindset a lot, that it can feel nihilistic. It can feel really disheartening. Because I think what a lot of people are struggling with, especially at our age, is that there aren't a lot of things that bring people true joy and passion. And when you find things that bring you passion, whether that's art or music or bowling or reading or whatever you're pursuing, it doesn't even matter. Motocross racing, I don't care what you do. But when you find something that truly brings you passion and puts you in a space where you feel like there's something worth living for,
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you feel like there is something that gets you up every day and makes you understand that true innate humanness of like, this is joy, this is peace, this is passion, this is creation, this is awareness, this is presence, like whatever words we want to assign to that. And I'm sure you feel it with your children. I'm sure you feel it when we're on the podcast sometimes. Like, right, we each get glimpses of that. But I think there are a lot of people that get stuck in their 20s because we feel so lost that we don't have spaces in our life where we feel passionate about anything. Mm-hmm. And so we are seeking through buying, through searching through love, through searching through relationships, through searching through substances, anything, sex, career, like, who knows what we're searching through, but we're trying to find those glimpses of passion and connection and potency. And it can feel very nihilistic when you don't have those glimpses, those sparks. Mm-hmm. And
well, you're taught that that's not what is important. You're taught, if we're gonna stay in the realm of capitalism, is where my head is going. You're taught that in order to get back to the true purpose of life, which is to live passionately, to live purposefully, to live peacefully and content, you have to earn it.
Sure. And structure and stability and safety is important. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? You make money through a stable job. You get a good partner. You buy a house. I mean, we all know the white picket fence story.
Yeah, we're given a blueprint. But it feels so counterintuitive to people who in their 20s, I feel like, no. That's not the fucking blueprint they want to follow.
That's why it's this existential crisis. That's why it's this quarter life crisis, because we're all going through this battle of intuitively feeling like this isn't really what I want to conform to, but do I have another choice? Because it doesn't feel like I do, because I feel that I must participate in all of these systems and all of these institutions, and I have to make money to survive, and I don't know who I want to be or what I want to do, and blah, 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 blah. And it's so overwhelming. But there's also this other part of us like that completely wants to rebel. And that just is like, but money's not real. And I don't care about any of this shit. And what is my purpose? And I actually just want to hang out with my friends and be in nature. And I actually just, I mean, like there's such an intuitive part of us that knows that the systems are completely wrong, but there's also a very logical, smart frontal lobe developing part of us that knows that we have to participate to get by.
That's the rub. That's the rub.
So while we are going through very religious, spiritual, mindful, conscious awareness, existential awakenings, we are also going through societal awakenings where we can start to understand the machine that is what we are now participating in, which we now have to participate in. We're getting off our parents' healthcare. We're getting, into the career workforce. We're getting, into having families and having children and having to raise other humans. We're getting into real responsibilities that, unfortunately, if it were easy enough, everyone would just go fuck off and live off grid and chill. But it's not. Or is it? I don't know. Michael Singer talks a lot in his Untethered Soul books about like the paradox of simplicity versus complexity. And like, is it just that simple or is it just that complex in terms of like mindset and paradigm shift?
Or is it both?
Or is it both about how to interpret the world? And a lot of our suffering comes from this psychological interpretation of time and past and future, and how the past is regret and the future is anxiety. And a lot of how we live is in either one of those realms. So we're very rarely in the present of just like what we are doing right fucking now. And that psychological suffering that we create takes us away from our inherent true nature of just like peace and joy. Because moment to moment to moment, if we are like truly, truly right here in this pure loving awareness moment, you can probably eradicate a lot of the anxieties that you have. A lot of the discomfort and dissatisfaction that we experience comes from the thinking mind. And the thinking mind lives in past and it lives in future. So the simplicity comes from being right here. And is it just that simple? Yes, it is. But is it also just that complex that like there's also everything else that we just talked about all around us at all times? It's all pervasive, that we participate in a society that has so many layers
and so many systems in place to distract us from being here, from being in the simple. So many fucking systems. And I'm even going through this existential crisis right now with social media, which we won't get too far into, but I think that I have realized that, you know, checking out a 30-second reel turns into 3 hours of fucking scrolling. Mm-hmm. And then what am I doing with my time? I'm distracting myself from what? From conversations like this, from finding that inner peace. So then when I'm done scrolling, I'm irritable, I'm frustrated, I'm thinking that the grass is greener because I just saw 20,000 people who have more than me, bigger houses, bigger families, more money, better clothes, all these things. And so it's just this distraction. And what's fucking awful about it is how many times do you put your phone down and then you get a notification? And then you check the notification and you put it down and then you get another notification. Our phones are literally designed to notify us. They're designed to be picked up. And so my point to even bringing this up was I think that you have to identify the things that are distracting you. Speaking of Michael Singer, I just listened to one of his episodes that he did for his podcast talking about
episode 33.
It was the Choosing Joy one.
Yes.
Bro.
So good.
I sent it to Lucas. I was like, you need to hear this.
You need to put this on repeat, my boy.
And the point I wanted to make with that is he talks about the distinction between psyche and consciousness, which was really helpful for me to understand because I think that it's really easy to think that you are the ego. And then that's why it's super hard to then find that peace, find that simplicity that Jessa was talking about, is you identify you as ego. And so to be able to hear him break down the differences and distinctions between them and say that the psyche is the sum of your lived experiences. That is your experiences. That is your past fueling your present and your belief systems, your mindsets, everything, behaviors. But then consciousness is the witness. Consciousness is the observer of those things. That's you. That's your soul. So it's like this distinction was really helpful for me because it helps me understand that this observing nature, this witness, this almost like, I don't want to say inactive, but almost it's the being. That's what it is. And I think that our society is so programmed to do. I get so caught up in the doing. And I think that's really where a lot of the grass is greener comes from, is like this over producing, this working hard, this staying connected, this consuming nature that takes us out of connecting with ourselves and our own fucking lawns.
Yeah. Are you ready for something really trippy that Michael Singer episode brought me to? So this idea that we're talking about, again, being witness consciousness. So sitting outside of the sum of your experiences. So the psyche, the ego, these terms that we're using to describe the you that is here. Witness consciousness, the 5D, the being outside, the being infinite, the Joe Dispenza language of being out here looking down at yourself. The witness consciousness that we're talking about is interesting because, and this was my interpretation, in order to be sitting in the place of witness consciousness, you need to have so witness consciousness is infinite, it's formless, it's nothingness, it's beingness. You need to have form in order to be formless.
Right.
So the irony of being formless is you must first come from a place of form, which means, therefore, that you can't fully dissolve the ego. So back to the first question that you asked me of like, why do we need the ego? How is that helpful? How is the ego helpful? Why can't we fully transcend it? Is because we need it to sit in a place of witness consciousness. We need it to be in full beingness, because without it, we can't transcend it. Following?
Yeah, but it brings me to more of a tangible, like, example of in what we're talking about too. I don't want it to come off as like we're discrediting situations that are harmful to people. Like, if you're in a circumstance or a situation that is not like your lawn is actually fucked, like, that's when it's helpful too. But that's where it was taking me, is I think that the ego, what you're saying, the form helps us identify other tangible forms that are not working for us, that are harmful. It's almost like I think about it as a survival. Like, it is our survival mechanism. It's what keeps us alive. Whereas the consciousness is almost like, I don't have the words to describe what I'm thinking, but it's like, it's almost this, what I was going with the concept of like, you have to earn that freedom. I think that it's similar to that, but it's not that, where the ego is the thing that like keeps us safe, and the consciousness is like where we're able to be safe, if that makes sense. It's like the existence. Sometimes it's like when a child is on perfect behavior around people that they don't know because they don't feel safe to express their emotions. I feel like your ego is the thing that is protecting you, and almost like your survival, but then being able to come from a place of like consciousness, safety. Like, it's the thing that's providing you safety, and then the consciousness is that safety. Does that make sense?
Kind of, but it's also ironic because the ego is the thing that's protecting you, but it's also the thing that gets you in trouble.
100%.
But back to kind of like the grass is greener. And I love the point that you made of, if you're listening to this and you're really feeling like, am I really not supposed to feel like the grass is always greener when I just lost my partner in a car accident? Am I really supposed to feel like the grass isn't fucking greener when I just got diagnosed with cancer? Am I really supposed to fucking feel like the grass isn't greener when I've just gone through a really, really dark and deep tragedy? And, you know, I think that you're right. It's not to discredit that there is deep grief, trauma, darkness, shame, sadness, where it really does look like other people's grass is greener. And that's not to say that there aren't situations outside of yourself that could bring you a lot of peace and joy and happiness. And that's not to say that you shouldn't go strive for things that will make you feel good. It's just to say that always seeking outside of yourself to fill a void is a hamster wheel. It's a cycle that will lead you to exhaustion, to burnout, and to a lack of trust in yourself, that you have what it takes to control the ability to fill yourself with love and peace. And at the end of the day, we are all we have. Really. I mean, like, we can put ourselves in experiences and situations and scenarios and around people, places, and things that do give us, you know, temporary consolation. But the experiences that you have, the emotions that you have, the feelings, the thoughts exist within you.
That's why you need both. That's why you can't have one without the other. We can't just be these witness consciousness beings of light, formless, if we don't have the form. Like you said, we need both. We need both to be able to exist and live out our full potential, and also like help us get out of situations that are harmful, or even process situations that are tragic. And I think that this grass is always greener concept is really, really hard to grapple with, because it's not bad and it's not good. It's not that we shouldn't be using this phrase as a way to audit what's going on internally. It's that we should be using this phrase to audit what's going on internally. Like, a question I wanted to ask you, that I feel I've struggled with or I've pondered is, do you think you can overwater your lawn?
Do you think you can overwater your lawn? Well, I guess I'm just wondering, like, overwater my lawn.
You want me to give you an example?
Yeah.
The reason I thought of that question was because, oh my God, I forgot Mac was in here.
Yeah, isn't he
He's just being a perfect little angel.
I know.
The reason I asked that question is because, and just to give a little context, I think it's helpful. I used to be a holistic health coach and I did a lot of human design. And in human design, I'm a 2-4 profile, which is the hermit and the opportunist, which is very much this push-pull energy of I want to spend time with myself. I connect to the divine through myself. I really need to be, for lack of better words, like alone sometimes to be able to then get into my opportunist self of sociability and making connections and community, and my opportunities come through my relationships and things like that, right? So there's this very much this push-pull energy. The reason I thought about that was because last year I was in a really bad place, but on paper I was the most holistically well because I was meditating, I was journaling, I was coaching, I was making good money, I was growing my mind, I was learning more, I was really like in the weeds of human design and figuring it out and doing other people's charts. Like I was, on paper, I looked like I was watering my lawn a lot, and I was to some extreme, but I was neglecting the other side of me that needs to be social, that needs to make connections, that needs to be in community, that needs to feel like I belong, that needs to get out of my fucking house. Mm-hmm. So like the question was like, in a way, I was almost overwatering what I thought was important.
Sure, I think you can overwater certain parts of it. It's really hard to holistically water your whole lawn with like a even sprinkler.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, overwatering your lawn can sometimes lead to this cycle of guilt and shame of wanting something so badly. Like when people really, really want something so badly for themselves, they want peace, they want joy, they want happiness so badly that they would do anything to get it. When they don't have it, then they get mad at themselves for not having it.
Yeah.
And so it's this idea of like setting yourself to such an expectation and such a standard of having a life that feels this level of good or this level of, you know, ease or this level of open, whatever languaging that has a positive connotation that, you know, means it's a good life for you. I'm going to water my lawn, so it's going to be good. You then set this ironic new pressure on yourself to water your lawn enough. Mm-hmm. My lawn isn't green enough. My lawn isn't green enough. Mm-hmm. Now there's a negative spin on a positive pressure. Mm-hmm. And so everything's a fucking balancing act. Like everything is, again, a paradox of complexity versus simplicity. And so is it overwatering your lawn? No, but is there a pressure of every morning at 8 a.m. I have to get up and I have to water my lawn. Every morning at 8 a.m. I have to get up and water the flowers. Yeah. Like, be careful with that.
Yeah.
Slippery slope of making sure that you're not setting an expectation on yourself to take care of yourself in a way that's actually detrimental.
Yeah. And with that, I think it's like, what's the intention? What is driving that egoic mindset of I need to wake up and water my fucking lawn at this time or it's not going to be bountiful?
Sure. Just the concept. And to make this a more tangible example, I was chatting with someone the other day who came to our event and, you know, she's got 5 kids or however many kids, couple kids, and she's just super busy. And she's like, you know, I never get time for myself. I want to meditate. I want to journal and I never get myself to do it. And we just had a conversation where it came up to be, just be careful that when you do have the time, it doesn't become a cycle of getting upset with yourself that you're not utilizing your free time to journal just because you have pressure on yourself that that's what you should be doing in your free time because it's going to serve you. Because it's actually going to work in an opposite effect of, oh, well, now I have this free time and I told myself that I should be journaling because that's what's going to make me feel good, because that's what I think is going to make me feel good, because that's what I should be doing, because that's what and then you end up journaling in your free time because that's what you told yourself you should be doing, but it's actually not what's serving you. And you think you're watering your lawn, but you're actually stomping all over your grass. Like, so it's really intuitive to have to know when the grass needs watering, and know when you have to take a walk down the street and go step on other people's lawns just to ground and just enjoy their lawns, and not to get anything else from it, but just to experience it again, just to make your life rich. And we're speaking very metaphorically and in analogies, but there's so much pressure to live outside of your wants and your desires. And it's okay to have wants and desires. It's okay to have goals. It's okay to manifest. It's okay to want your life to look a certain way.
Your life is not meaningless.
Yeah, that's not the problem. Again, that's the fun of the participation. But you will set yourself up for void, for failure, for judgment, for guilt and shame when you attach your happiness to these specific outcomes. And so the free flow, the awareness comes from being a little bit more laissez-faire, hands off, to what happens.
Detached. Yeah. I want to go back to something I mentioned briefly, was the phrase, wherever you go, there you are. I think that is really potent if you can ask yourself that question when you are in this satisfaction loop of like wanting to be more satisfied, getting there, feeling dissatisfied still. Why are you feeling dissatisfied still? And it's because wherever you go, there you are. There's clearly something within you that, again, maybe it is the belief that happiness is conditional, and you've never actually asked yourself, what are unconditional ways that I feel joy? And I think that as long as you're doing that and you're constantly checking in with yourself, you're constantly checking in with, why do I feel dissatisfied here? Trying to dig into that, trying to see where you can maybe like unattach from these beliefs that are making you feel that way. I think that is really the key to being able to again, water your own grass, take a walk, because we need to do both.
Have you read Be Here Now by Ram Dass?
No.
It's a very... The book is supposed to find you.
Did it just find me?
I think it might have. I think it found you. It's a very, very powerful book that a lot of people read during these big awakenings. And it talks a lot about his spiritual awakenings and personal anecdotes when he studied in India, his experiences with psychedelics, specifically LSD, a lot of awareness, consciousness, mindfulness thoughts. But the point really is moving from ego into pure awareness. And he talks about the concept that we are all walking each other home once we move into this state of like love with a capital L. And we love with a capital L. And it's done with these beautiful illustrations, and it's done laced with humor, and it's done in a really fascinating way. And he talks all about his experiences on psychedelics were a big catalyst for him to move into this state of pure loving awareness, which is this consciousness that we're talking about. But they are not a sustainable long-term way to participate and be a functioning member of society. And meditation and mindfulness and conversation like this is really the way. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about here is reflected in his languaging in the book, about how to have both participation in the 3D material world and also be pure consciousness.
I need to read it.
You should just read it.
I need to read it.
Yeah.
Call to action for everyone. We'll all read it. It's found all of us. But I think the last couple questions I want to ask you is, I think a lot of people listening are feeling unhappy with where they're at in life. I think a lot of people are feeling that they lack success. They lack the ability to find themselves. Like, I think a lot of people still have this automatic script running through their head of, I don't know who I am. Or they're working a job that they don't love and they don't know what to do. So one question, this is kind of twofold and you can answer it how you want. I want to know what you think might be kind of fueling this dissatisfaction epidemic. Do you feel like we've always, like, this is a part of human existence? Like 100 years ago, did everyone feel dissatisfied? Or are there things in our society now that might be contributing to that more? And two, what type of, I don't want to say advice, but like, what words could you offer people that are feeling like, oh, fuck, if I just didn't work this job, like, I'd be so much happier. If I wasn't in this relationship, I would be so much happier. If I didn't have to be with my kids all the fucking time, I'd be so much happier. If I was just in Asia, I'd be so much happier, or Hawaii or whatever. Like, go.
I think that part of this, these questions that we're asking ourselves right now, and these deep-rooted, purpose-driven questions about why we're here and what we're supposed to do, and these consciousness, existence-driven questions, I think that's really, again, paradigm shift, part of the reason and the fun of why we're here. And so I think that these have always been questions about, how do I fill my time? What am I doing here? What is everyone else doing here? Is everyone else having these existential questions? I think that's, in the history of existence, always been a thought process. And so, you know, since the history that we've all had to participate in society somehow, there's always been hierarchy, and therefore there's always been comparison.
Right.
Do I think it's been exacerbated since the since the Industrial Revolution, when jobs have been even more
Spread out?
out? Yes. And especially since the technological revolution, where there's just been such a fraudulent representation of people's lives being better than they really are, or people's presentation of self being so much more of a facade. Like, yes, that has led to a country where the suicide rates, the mental health rates, the studies show that we are the least happy that we have ever been.
Drop that podcast.
I will.
The Know Thyself. I started listening to it, but I forget what it was. Drop it.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
We are truly experiencing an epidemic of the furthest from the innate happiness, the innate humanness that we have ever been. And one of the main things that we can attribute it to is the technological advances that we have amongst us in society. And what that leads to is this lens of comparison, because we can see everyone else doing everything else around us at all fucking times. And we're all participating in presenting to the world the best parts of ourselves, or curating a life that looks like we are all happy and we are all successful and thriving at all times, which is completely unrealistic. And so to that, I will say a call to action for everyone is to be as vulnerable as we can online, and to remember that it's a fraudulent world. It's a completely fake world. It doesn't actually exist. It literally doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's a different topic for a different day, because we really need an entire episode on social media, because the concept is very abstract. But the second part to that question is what words to offer people in terms of
just feeling dissatisfied with where they're at, feeling like the grass is always greener.
You're wasting your own time. You're wasting your life away. We all know that we have such limited time on this earth. We all know that we are the ones, my favorite quote as of recently that you've heard me say in person or on this podcast, is that we are the ones holding the hot coal of resentment. We are the ones struggling and suffering if we are living in a space of, I will be happy when, or my life sucks if I don't have X, Y, and Z, or I hate my job, I hate my boss, I hate my this. It's okay to be dissatisfied and want change, but if you are wasting every single present moment you have wishing things were different, That's a big throwaway of your own precious time. You have each experienced times in your life where you have felt the highest of highs. You felt loved, you felt joy, you felt the depths of laughter, you felt peace, you felt the sun on your skin. You know how beautiful life can be. So why not? Why not create more opportunities for that to exist in the small moments in your life? Because it is the small moments that build up your life.
And are the most accessible.
Like when we talk about now, the eternal now is moment by moment by moment by moment by moment by moment, second by second by millisecond that builds everything, that builds this entire linear timeline. And even if it's just the littlest things, that takes conscious effort, attention, and awareness to pay attention to. But like, sure, your boss fucking sucks. That sucks. But are there other things that you can pay attention to that bring you joy, that bring you peace? Are there people that you can appreciate? Can you start your day with gratitude? That is a choice. That's a choice that you have.
And this is also going to sound super invalidating, but like, it's also a choice to ruminate on the fact that your boss fucking sucks. Because how much time is that also taking up outside of work? Are you complaining about it to your partner all the time? Are you guys not connecting? Are you not being intimate because you're caught up with the fact that your boss fucking sucks? Like,
and it's really hard to look someone in the eyes who's experiencing something really heavy and really hard and tell them, you have a choice. You have a choice to not care about that. You have a choice to not be sad about that. And like,
dude,
something that I've realized is this spectrum of emotion that we have that grows as you age, because that's what humanness is to experience sensation and emotion. As it gets more grand with appreciation and love and joy and euphoria and bliss, it also grows in the opposite direction. It grows in terms of fear and grief and loss and dissatisfaction, because non-duality, because you can't have one without the other, because they are two sides to the same coin. And so what I will say to that is that also, I challenge you to appreciate some of the dissatisfaction. I challenge you to honor some of the grief and fear and sadness. I challenge you to say, hey, thank you for the frustration. Hey, thank you for the instability. Thank you for the catalyst to want change and growth and opportunity to open new doors and shift around my life in ways that like could feel fun and entertaining and playful. Because that spectrum is, again, the richness of experience. That spectrum is the uniqueness of your personal story here. Mm-hmm. And things are sensational and real, yes, but temporary. So loaded. And again, simple but complex.
Yeah. I think the last thing that I want to say is, I don't want to speak for anyone listening, but I do feel like because we've identified that a lot of this grass is always greener mindset, lack mindset comes from the ego, I have to assume that a lot of it also comes from this obsession with perception. And this obsession, and again, this is a conversation we can have during the social media episode too, but like this obsession with being perceived, and whether it's you consciously knowing I really care about the way that other people perceive me, or it's even the subconscious knowing of, I care about how I perceive myself. I think it can be twofold. I think it can be both. I think it can really be this thing that is driving these feelings of, I will be happy when. Mm-hmm. I will be happy when I get the job, when I get the relationship, when I get whatever, fill in the blank. Like, I challenge you too as well, that when these moments come up of feeling dissatisfied, to check in, to dig into that and ask yourself, okay, is this like me being so obsessed with perception? Because what I have realized lately is that you can't control perception. Like, there's no such thing as being perceived wrong, because perception isn't truth. It's not an absolute truth. It's not something that is 100% accurate. It's interpreted. It's interpreted, and you cannot control interpretation. That's why art is so incredible, because everyone can interpret it differently, and you're supposed to. That's like you. Like, we can't get so caught up in being perceived, because there's not an absolute truth and consensus that we can all come to. You're going to be perceived however the fuck people are perceiving you, because they're also perceiving themselves in that perception. And they're also operating from all of their beliefs, all of their lived experiences to make that perception of you. They're going to see you however they want to see you, regardless of what you have. So just please try to identify the moments that you're caught up in perception and realize that it doesn't fucking matter.
Mm-hmm. Love. That was really, really well said. And I think that's a perfect place to leave it. I think that this was a really heavy topic. I mean, even throughout it, you guys, like being on a microphone sometimes is hard for me, because I'm like, how am I being perceived? What the fuck am I going to say that's going to land with people?
Yeah.
How am I going to formulate my thought? Like, sometimes we drop in here, sometimes we don't. Like, these are heavy conversations. These are hard conversations. We're figuring it out along the way with you guys. Like, that's the cool part about us being here. I had a recent thought in our last couple episodes of, oh my gosh, am I showing up on this podcast just as like funny Jess? Because that's a safe place for me to be. That's a safe interpretation for people to have of me. And then I get to these episodes where we talk about bigger things and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I even say blah, blah, blah. Like it's so much. This is so much. There's so much to say. There's so much to act. There's so much to do. There's so much to be, but also at the same time, like, just take a breath, digest a little bit of what we said, maybe come back and listen to this later. Maybe let us know what you think. Just know that you are doing the best you can with what you know and what you have. And so are we. And we're right there with you. And we'll link a bunch of the resources below. Like, a lot of these people that we've talked about have been so influential in the way I personally have come through a lot of my awakenings and my conscious existence. And I think that they could be really influential for you as well. We love you guys.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Next episode, Jess is not going to have this hair, which is going to be interesting. Maybe it'll bring a different energy.
Yeah, I hope so, because it's bogging down my brain.
Okay, bye guys. We love you.
I love you.